prior to Contentsquare, we might have been acting on noise. A lot of things would have distracted us. Now with Contentsquare, we absolutely know how things perform and what we need to do in order to improve further. So I'm Jonny Evans, I'm CRO Manager, which is Conversion Rate Optimization at Audi UK. So Audi is all about progress through technology. That's very much the DNA in our cars. That's what Vorsprung technique means. We try, obviously it's a different thing on the website, but we try and live the same thing there as well. In terms of customer expectations will be quite high of Audi, being a relatively premium brand, and therefore it's important that we match that on our website. So if we take a specific example, probably not too unique to us. We have these big long product pages for all of our products, about 80 pages because there's one for each model and body style. And they were really previously potentially lacking in direction. There's a lot of content, like I mentioned, but not necessarily understanding what's the content that drives value for us. So if someone sees this component, are they more likely to engage with it and therefore more likely to become a lead versus this component, which is maybe going to be, if anything, detrimental towards them becoming a lead. So where Contentsquare was really helpful was to understand, we kind of went in with that as a problem, and we knew it was potentially diluting our conversion rates because we felt there were probably a lot of users coming onto our site and maybe just getting lost. So where Contentsquare really helped was to do that on-page analysis to understand with things like attractiveness rate, with things like you can click on a component and see the conversion rate to a particular action, things like that. We could really understand, okay, we need to keep XYZ components, but these components can either go or be repurposed somewhere else on the site. I would say what's most useful is the ability to basically custom tag everything. So like I say, we have goals, but also errors that we will send to Contentsquare if we pick up that something's happening, and then that's incredibly useful at debugging. And then I think the zoning analysis, the ability to see conversion rate at a component level. So like I can see this particular stock component, if someone engages with this, are they more or less likely to become a lead than this component? And that is incredibly useful. Very rare to get that kind of on-page analysis, but really just in a few seconds gives you a huge amount of insight. Since 2022, when we established CRO and experimentation, and specifically Contentsquare, we've seen year-on-year improvements in conversion rate on site. And that's at a time where the context is that users have been less likely to give up their data. So I think we're very much bucking the trend there. We're able to increase our conversion rates at a time where users are less likely to submit a form. Specifically on product page simplification, that case study I talked about, we saw a 7% increase in our conversion rate to test drive, a 8% reduction in bounce rate, and a 7% increase in time spent on site. And those are all really important indicators for us, because if we get more of those right, then the outcomes are going to be good on the other side. So there's clear evidence that we document frequently of how CRO and Contentsquare has helped us and why we continue to invest in that area. I think when things are just numbers on a screen, it can be really hard to kind of digest. You feel like you're the one very much processing stuff and having to manually get from point A to point B, and that can take a long time. In Contentsquare, I think because it's so visual, the point and click interface, the customization, the time spent is so much slicker, and therefore we can spend less time on the kind of analysing and more time on the proactive, what can we do about this? So yeah, huge time efficiencies. Contentsquare has made us way more acting on a position of strength, on a position of knowledge, and rather than guessing and not knowing. Previously, prior to Contentsquare, we might have been acting on noise. A lot of things would have distracted us. Now with Contentsquare, we absolutely know how things perform and what we need to do in order to improve further.